Okay, folks, as you can see, I have Aristo here with me, and the title of the video today, and this is going to be the last video for 2017, and it's called Tested Faith is Strength is the, well, not is the, Tested Faith is Strength We Need. And he gave me that a little while ago, but we've had computer issues and things going on here this morning, but here we go.
Is here, and I don't even know why, but let's just chalk it up to the situation, whatever. Yes, Ron asked me yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, to come on, and I have a lot of stuff going on in my life as well, but since it's the last video of the year, I wanted to just briefly say a few things and leave a last impression, you might say, for those of you who are watching. And yes, because Ron had another video previously where he was giving a talk and was admiring how much confidence he had. And everybody was agreeing, yeah, Ron, you had a lot of confidence. You were inspiring people and you had a lot of faith. But the thing is, faith, beginner's luck, faith, childhood innocence, these things do not save the day. They're admirable and they're a foundation and we must preserve them. But they will all be tested. A child will be traumatized in one way or another, sometimes severely, sometimes not, but they're going to lose their innocence. Otherwise, they cannot be an adult. Beginner's luck is going to run out at some point. You can't just go to the casino and keep winning. You're going to lose at some point, and your faith is going to be tested, which means that just because you come out and say something and think positive doesn't mean off the bat your positive is going to manifest, because you got a whole bunch of people out there, at least just people, we're not talking anything else, any other variable, that have contradictory intentions to yours. It's not, even if everybody wants peace on earth, they all have different ways of getting it, most of them self-serving to each person. So in one way or another. So everybody is in a situation where until they can mature their faith, so maybe test is the wrong word, maybe mature, maybe seasoned faith. We need to season it. Maybe fermented faith, like a good wine, get it nice and intoxicated, But as it stands, straight off the press, it is too raw. It is too virginal. It is too naive, shall we say. It is not tested. There's no feedback with reality. And I'm not talking reality, harsh reality, they're doing this and that. It's circumstances. Okay, so all faith is going to be tested, but that may be a misnomer. That's a little bit deistic. It's almost like you have some higher power purposely doing it when it doesn't have to be done. No, your peers are doing it. It's the horizontal level right here. There's the vertical level, earth, sky, angels, demons, underworld, overworld, higher mind, instincts. That's the vertical, metaphorically speaking, level of being. Whatever your creed may be, whether atheist, deist, whatever, but we have this vertical level. And the horizontal level is everything around us. It's what we see here, the five senses, our relationships. And this horizontal level is basically we are isolated from our peers. So what happens when a dictator wants to control us? He needs us unified. See, that's the paradox. Divide and conquer occurs in order to break us up from our own bonds and then unify us according to the bonds dictated by the dictator. Okay, so we have false flags. Oh, let's all unify around the false flag and agree to throw the Constitution away in terms of Europe and the United States. Let's all unify around some fabricated religious doctrine. Let's all unify around some fabricated racial issue, or not fabricated, but redefined from a real issue and repackaged and taking out the essential parts and just making sure everybody gets really divisive with each other. So they're unifying us around the concept of repressing ourselves willingly, because there's just too many of us to be repressed unwillingly. Let's face it. There's a saying by Bishop Brzezinski that was going around the internet for some years ago, that these days you can kill 1 million people far easier than you can convert them, But I think that saying was more or less bullshit. These days, killing 1 million people is not easy. It's a historic event. Now, much less, how do you fucking kill billions? I mean, this whole century, 250 million people were killed, and it's the one where the most people, we have the greatest population ever, but we also have the greatest number of deaths ever, barring an extinction level event. If you go beyond a certain level of killing people, the ball won't be stopped. It'll snowball. You can't stop it. If you set off a virus and kill 1 billion people, it's not just going to stop there. If you do some kind of war that kills 1 billion people, there's no way you'll poison the planet or do something. It's not going to stop there. Just think about that. So they cannot just kill 1 billion people. They can slow poison the 1 billion people over a few generations, and that's what they're trying to do. What they can do is convince 1 billion people or more to commit suicide or eventually, you know, undermine themselves, so they may as well be dead. Because, you know, their bodies can be there, but, you know, slowly their genes, you know, you have GMOs. If all you have to eat are GMOs within 3 generations, you're basically mush, biomush. And all of these things are big, like Ron says often, the death of humanity, you know. But I don't believe that. It's not easy to kill humanity. Humanity itself is part of this ecosystem. You would have to destroy the planet to kill humanity. There is no way. And it's not like the planet and humanity are bonded, just like differently than other species. They're really, really bonded. Humanity has affected the planet so much that if you try to extract it, it'll tear the planet apart at this point. We're talking humanity. We're not talking, yeah, of course, and it'll tear the planet, the biosphere apart. So you can do an extinction level event. But who benefits from that? What's the point of that? Unless they got some other planet, then they'll just bomb us from the skies if that's the case. So it's not the case as far as I'm concerned. Most of what's being thrown at us is bullshit. But human beings are treated as we domesticate animals. So these types who control the situation, so-called, domesticate the rest of humanity. That's what they're attempting to do. So look at yourself. You're a domesticated animal. Now, how are you going to undomesticate yourself? This isn't the same slavery as with the Roman era. Remember, there was this massive campaign. I grew up with glorifying Rome. The Westerners glorify Rome, the Romans, all the movies, the Caesars. Now, these people were like 10%, you know, free people with a very small elite class, and the rest were merchants and stuff. These were free people. And the merchants, I heard, had tattoos that aligned them with a noble family or a senatorial family, or, you know, that's the way commerce was. They were like mafia families, essentially. And these mafia families controlled everything, and they elected one person to represent them. That was the emperor. So if the emperor, like the Emperor Caligula, I had read, that is so maligned, basically started prostituting senatorial women and killing off the upper class. He didn't harm the lower classes. And so he might have been even popular with the people, but history maligned them because the ones who wrote history were the ones targeted by this guy. You know, how the Romans were in those days, the emperors, everybody killed everybody. You know, this guy was the last surviving. They killed all of his family, you know, in the competition for who's going to be emperor. And eventually he came out. But this is like the author Gore Vidal's version, you know, that he's based on certain historical fragments and stuff. So it's just one theory. No need to contest it. I just wanted to make a point that you have a certain senatorial class where we glorify slavery because Rome was built on slavery. The whole 1,000-year Reich. Rome did not exist 1,000 years. Why did Hitler want a 1,000-year Reich? Well, because the Christian Roman Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, otherwise known as Byzantium, that did last 1,000 years. For the Middle Eastern, the medieval Europeans, my internet connection is unstable, so
yeah, I got the same notice.
Okay. But historically speaking, you know, the medieval Europeans envied both the Arab empires, the Muslim empires, and the Byzantine Empire. And the Pope, by 1200, launched crusades that ransacked the Byzantine Empire. He sacked Constantinople, which was a Christian capital, and on his way to sack Jerusalem, you know, the Muslim area, and the whole area there. And then they came back, and the reason they did that basically was because their own nobles were saying, why the hell do we need a church? we can control everything. We can have control of the priests and everything, just like the Protestants did later. Why, or the Anglicans? Why the hell are we subject to this Pope? So the Pope launched a crusade and said, well, because I'm organizing you to go rape and pillage. And you'll get treasure because of me. So he bought them off with this and unified the people and threatened everybody else with excommunication. Once the Crusades were over, then he started the pogroms, the genocidal, killed the Cathars, they were, the heretics and this and that and the other, then the witch burnings. And then the next one was with the Reformation. But the thing is, see, every time the people would lift their heads up a little bit, they'd be slammed down. Somebody would rise up, faith would be increased, and they'd be slammed down. So right now, what's going on is the very mechanism, scientifically speaking now, the very mechanism of faith is being attacked. So faith is not the blind thing we get. That's just the beginning stage of true strength. The beginning stage of true strength starts with a revelation and a conviction. I know this is right, this is wrong, this is what needs to be done, blah, blah, blah. This is how things should be. How we get there, however, well, you don't know. So what you go is, well, the shortest path between 2 points is a straight line. Let's try the straight line. The straight line rarely works. Adolf Hitler used to, my old teacher in elementary school, I remember that, he said, yeah, well, you know what they used to do in Germany? They just had 2 points with all these mountains, and Hitler says, I don't care. Draw a ruler, that's the way the road's going to be. No veering off, no curves, no whatever. You're going to carve the mountains if you have to. That's what a dictator does, forces the straight line. Regular people don't work that way. Regular people cooperate with their environment. They cooperate with each other. It's not compromise, it's relationship. It's back and forth, it's give and take. That is a messier process. You see, so the prophet basically doesn't deal with that stuff. The prophet just says you need to go to point B. He doesn't tell people how to get there. He tells people how to take the first step at most. So prophets were persecuted because that first step is very important. And if people take it, then somebody else is going to come up and reveal the second step. And so historically speaking, you can look back at all of these things, and if you're a psychopath or an elite or whatever, you'll say, okay, these are the symptoms of awakening. We gotta not just stifle them, but there's like too many people on this planet. If they wake up, we're screwed. And they can. If 10% of the people wake up consistently, but you see, every time 9.9% of the people do wake up, something happens to slap them back down again, and they don't have reactive mechanisms against it. You see, it's because the situation is just like humanity is embedded in the planet. So if you're going to kill the whole human species, you're going to change all of these stories about, I don't really believe it, where you have, humanity is gone and you just have animals roaming around desolate cities. It's like, well, humanity, you can probably do that, but the thing is, if you're going to kill humanity, the planet itself is going to change. The planet is a spiritual entity. It's not just a mechanical thing. If it was a mechanical thing, it didn't matter. We wouldn't even be talking about the planet. Planet is just a bunch of a rock. Life is what matters then. If you're just a materialist, biological life is what matters. The rest of it, fuck it. Microbes, who cares? I don't care about a bunch of bacteria on a rock. So you kill all the higher life forms, what's the point? However, I do believe that the planet is a spiritual entity in the sense of it's alive. Planets are living things. I believe suns are living things. I believe this universe is a living thing. That's my sense of it. That's my energetic connection. Maybe through years and years of meditation, whatever you want to call it, but it's my conviction. So the proves it and all of that doesn't matter to me because it's my experience. I can't prove my experience. Usually when people say prove it, they mean give me the name of some authority who has already declared it and made everybody believe it because it's allegedly proven it. No, you don't prove consciousness. You experience it. So if you can experience it, you will prove it. Similarly, if you can experience having faith, having it tested, you see, or challenged, or compromised, or beaten down. And that's not what makes you stronger. As Ron said, I don't believe that. I've been tested, yes, but you see, it's the getting back up that strengthens your legs because you have to, you might have an accident, for example, and this accident might be close to breaking you, and you take physical therapy. But during that physical therapy, if you're going to walk again, you need to cultivate willpower. You need to cultivate discipline. You need to cultivate constantly moving through pain and desire to be well, all of these things that may have not existed before. So I'm not saying your accident is a good thing. However, sometimes it happens and you can be resourceful with it. You don't just throw it away. You don't say, oh, I'm fucked, this happened. Okay, that's a waste. So instead of saying, oh, no, it's all for the best. No, it's not all for the best. You have an opportunity, however, to capitalize on it, even though I don't like that word, to be resourceful with it, and to make it something. And then it can be for the best. But it doesn't mean, oh, if it hadn't happened, you wouldn't have changed. No, well, the reason that you didn't change is because of prior traumas making you meek and timid, smaller ones, maybe complacency. The environment can have much gentler stimuli if that's the case. However, we are in denial, and denial must be faced one way or another. The point is that even if there weren't any psychopaths, over a period of hundreds of thousands of years of complacency, we would be the psychopaths. We would be so pissed off and bored at everything being the same old, and no creativity because, it kind of breeds itself that way. Complacency kind of gets, its own snowball effect, but a lot slower. So the point is, our world is compromised. And so we don't want to settle for just a less compromised world. We want to go for the gold. We want to go for the true paradisial world. And it's not going to happen with conventional wisdom. It's going to happen with transcendence of the conventional stuff, because the conventional stuff has been done. We are the result of all the conventional stuff. You can't say it hasn't been done enough, because humanity has so much variety on this planet that, somewhere along the lines, a sustainable paradise. And if it's a paradise, everybody would say, whoa, that's the way to do it. And you would have copied it, and it would have worked. And psychopaths themselves wouldn't have been able to do squat about it. But it wasn't enough. That's it. It's not enough. Our faith is tested in order for us to take the next step. It's not tested. I don't say God is testing it. I don't, that doesn't matter to me. I'm talking about the event of being challenged. That's what we know. We don't know where it comes from. Not for sure. Okay, or else we would have all agreed on it. So I don't want to get into arguments about that. However, the result is bad things happen to us. We can harness them. If an animal comes and attacks you, imagine harnessing it instead of fighting it and killing it or running away from it or being eaten by it, but harnessing it and making it your friend. So maybe the bad event itself isn't the friend, but the energy of the bad event, and that affects your reality, that affects your perception, that affects your constitution, and everything can be harnessed, transmuted, and used in your favor. That's the one thing that nobody can do at this point, is untransmute. Well, maybe I didn't say that right, but what they can't do at this point to us is prevent us from harnessing. They can create a whole bunch of distractions. They can fool us. They can do this, that, or the other in that sense. But harnessing is an eternal thing. We don't have the chips in our heads yet. They may tell us we do. They may say, through the alternative so-called media, because the other ones normally, look at this clever thing. The mainstream media denies everything except the mainstream narrative. And then you have the alternative media coming up and being infiltrated, spreading all kinds of rumors of crap that are unsubstantiated. I mean, these days you can Photoshop.
Some are, some aren't.
Well, again, semi-substantiated can also do harm. The one-eyed leading the blind is worse than the blind just going off on themselves. There's a half-truth is worse than a lie many times. So they put all of these half-truths in there, or distort the truths and all of that. And the alternative people go, oh, look, we're not falling for the mainstream narrative, but they're going and supporting something far worse. Hopelessness, despair, paranoia, this, that, and the other. And a lot of people get off on it. And a lot of people subconsciously want to belong. They don't care where they belong. and the establishment and everybody. There's a group thing, a sweet group think seduction going on. People admit that about the millennials. They just think, oh, these are just the millennials, you know. A generation spontaneously has a group mind and they all want to get together and do the same thing. No, it's being, shall we say, stimulated, because everybody wants to somehow not be alone, in a sense. Everybody wants to be heard. You know, all you have to do is tweak these things and reinforce the most radical elements of these insecurities, and you have that online. You have a whole bunch of artificial intelligence programs that can be coming in and doing shit and inputting information and reading people and responding. And the way they work is by ensuring, because if you're smarter than the programmer can't get you. You see, you have to be dumber than the programmer for the programmer to create an artificial intelligence to be able to read you. And when I say dumber, I don't mean intellectually IQ dumber. You know, that's their that's what is the establishment and the normal social network, whatever you want to call it, just the matrix, reinforces the whole concept of intelligence quotient, cleverness, thinking ability, you know. But emotional intelligence, spiritual intelligence, social intelligence, these are admitted these days, but they're not as reinforced. Now, if you can combine all of these things, synesthetic intelligence, you know, that's what I've done a lot of research in meditation and mysticism, and essentially it's a synesthetic state. You know, you can see that in the MRIs, the brain scans. A lot of areas are just, you know, fused together and blended in ways that normally don't happen. And so a body-mind connection occurs that takes us to a level of action, reaction, and beingness that is way beyond the norm. And it's a natural thing. It's inherent in us, and it's a potential. So if you can attain that, what some people call the great work, chemical transformation, but we're not talking about something extreme only for the few. We're talking about a process that if we can take that and humanize it to where we are in our own way, it's worth it. If you can find a way to enhance your various intelligence quotients, it's worth it. And nature provides that way through her, shall we say, random or not actions, in the sense of testing us, the feedback. Because if you have a disease, your immune system needs to experience the symptoms of the disease in order to fire up and create a cure. So your faith is tested. Call it organic. It's an organic thing. It's manifestational intelligence. It's the intelligence of creation around us. It's not some creator actually controlling everything. You know, technically the creator, basically, if there is such, this cause, wants to ride creation, in my opinion. And because the creator is creation, it's another facet of the creator. Creator and creation are one, in a sense. But the facet is different because, you know, if you want to truly ride creation as a creator, you don't want to control yourself from the outside. So we have forgotten who we are, but on purpose. It's not a game, like some say. It's not a ride, let's roller coaster. It's serious shit. It's a phase of being. You don't call teenagehood a game just because teenagers like to play games. You don't call childhood a game. You take it seriously. You protect the child. You support the teenager. You help the adult. And all of these phases are serious in that sense, not grave, but, you know. So yes, to take your whole issue of what you focus on expands or not expands, if you focus on the problem without a solution, then where does it take you? To the problem without a solution. Focusing on a problem is like a child being wounded and crying for daddy. But if daddy doesn't come, the child needs to wake up, realize they're not a kid anymore, and that they can easily bind their own wound. Or if they don't bind their own wound easily, they can find a way to do it. They must, in a way. And the way things are, I believe we are equipped to do so, at least potentially so. So all of these things, if people bitch about, oh, you're only focusing on the negative, Ron, maybe they just want positive stuff because they're sick of being bombarded by so much. Maybe they just want some time off or whatever. On the other hand, being John the Baptist and telling people repent or you're all going to die or whatever, that's okay for a while. But once everybody hears the message, they have a choice to listen to it or not. The next step is basically to say, well, this is what we can do. And then you realize, well, only 1% of people are actually listening to me now because they don't want to do with that. They want to do something else. That's fine. Because out of that 1% is a lot of people out of a big whatever group. And 1% can actually take the next step to inspire all these other different people because each of them takes things in their own way. We don't have to be desperate to find the solution. We have to use what we have, okay, in a creative way. If that is not focusing only on the positive. If we can give people tips to strengthen themselves, then they will consider that positive, but it's also useful. It doesn't deny the problem. It just creates a bridge between the negative and the positive. And in physics, when you create a bridge between the negative and the positive, you have an electric current, okay? Let's get the juices flowing in one way or another, because things are not going to get easier. They're not just going to get better if we wait for them. So throwing your hands up and saying it's too much, take a breath, take a breather. Find a way to go, well, if it's too much, do I really want to give up? Am I really happy with that? I mean, how do I want to define the rest of my life? It's up to me. What's meaningful for me? So I just leave you with these words. This is the last message from here. And that's a cool thing that I get to be part of this last message of 2017. 2018 is coming. It's not going to be easier. For many of us, it's going to be harder. For many of us, maybe we've created enough strength, maybe we've had enough experience that we can actually take some steps to take charge of some of our lives in order to create a foundation, another foundation to create more freedom for ourselves in a way, more opportunity, because we are the ones we have been waiting for. But we have been waiting for so long and we expect to be saved. We are not going to save ourselves. We are going to creatively transform the situation and ourselves. That's different. It may not be completely pleasant, but we don't have to take more shit than we need to. We just need to be wise enough to know how much shit we really need to take. And it's a lot less, I believe, than we are told. In fact, I do believe in the premise that you always have, for the most part, what you can handle, unless you're so far down the line that this video isn't even in your scope. So, but if this video is in your scope, if synchronicity has brought you to hear this, then I believe you are not given more than you can handle at this time. So take advantage of that. Make yourself stronger so you can handle even more and do more and be more, because it's to your benefit. Thank you so much for listening to me again. Thank you, Ron, for having me, and may your...
You still have time left, Aristo.
We do. You give me these, so,
yeah, I said 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes seems to sometimes...
Got a minute and a half left.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's okay,
That's cool. Well, a minute and a half with smiles and laughter and the fist raised and the left hand fist raised and onward to the revolution and all of that. Don't give up. Faith has been tested, but it hasn't been destroyed. You're still here. You're still talking. That means, because again, if you shut everything down, you're going to be in there and going, now what? Anybody can die at any time. So we're not in a rush to do so. So we can fight, but we don't have to struggle. We can take a breather. We can find ways we can be wise, and if we're not wise, then we can become wise. We can become healthy. We can take steps. It doesn't mean, oh, you have a choice. You don't have to suffer. That's bullshit. That's condescending. No, I'm not condescending. I understand how difficult it is. At least I understand it, and I empathize, and I feel it, and I experience a lot of difficulties here. However, it sucks to just give up. I mean, that pisses me off for me, to just sit there and say, oh, it's just kill me now, and have the lead guy laughing over there and validate the situation that I'm just a dumb, worse than the beast. At least beasts are going by instinct, and, they're outsmarted, so-called, by clever people, but the psychopath, they're not smarter than me. They may have a higher IQ, but they don't have spiritual intelligence. They don't have heart intelligence. They don't have all these other things. I mean, overall, all of us are smarter than them. Overall, globally speaking, you know. So let's take advantage of that. Let's get to know ourselves. Let's, you know, we don't need pats on the back. We don't need people to affirm us. We don't even need to affirm ourselves because we know better. We're past that. I would think we're past that already. So much new age healing has been done. So much spiritual affirmationism. So much, you know, I mean, haven't we, at least some of us who are willing to just move forward and open up to inspiration and just desire it, magnetize it, use your intention. So enough of my rambling. I think I've eaten up that last minute and a half. Really happy New Year.
I've done some, and that's okay.
Okay. Happy New Year.
I was going to say Happy New Year, Aristo. Thank you.
Okay, you too. Well,
No.
onward. Namaste.